Welcome back to Revelatorium, the podcast that comes around once a month. Which, why does it come around once a month? I figured I'd touch on this briefly in episode 19 because we have some new listeners that came through on my episode on singlehood, amongst other things. But I noticed some more attention on that, so welcome if you're new. I do this once a month, literally just because that is what I can manage. Like 90% of podcasts fail before they're even out the gate. I think fewer than 10% of podcasts make it past like episode 3 or something. And then like 90% of them fail before episode 21. And we're like 2 away. And like, I'm going to get there. But the only way I was going to get there is doing them once a month. Like this is a roundup. This is a revelatorium. Like these revelations, they're contained monthly. And if I brought them to you weekly, they would be less than a quarter baked. And when I put out ideas on the internet, my standard is a quarter baked. They don't have to be half baked. Just a quarter baked is like enough for me. So that's why we do once a month, because I'm just like such a fan of doing what's manageable for you. And even if there's like a cadence or a flow with anything you're involved in your life that other people can keep up with, if keeping up with that means that you actually fall off of it more than you would if you just did it at your own pace, like just do it at your own pace. Life unfolds for you. Don't rush. And so this is just what works for me. And I think it's beautiful and divine. So also Pride Month makes for its own set of revelations. This is reflecting on June of 2024. It is the last weekend of Pride Month. It is Seattle Pride. It's been nothing short of delirious. And like, okay, because here's the thing about Pride Month. Okay, I'm not behind the co-optation of Pride and all of that, but I do think like having so many events and so many opportunities to celebrate and like gather together makes for just like a louder revelatorium room of revelations. Like when you walk in, like they might speak to you a little bit louder during Pride Month than like other months. And I feel like I've definitely been experiencing that. I always, every single summer, experience hysteria around like some aspect of my identity. And I think this summer it might be gender because I have been dusting off my mustache wig this Pride weekend. I've been looking for opportunities to wear it. I bought it because I tried that like Instagram filter. I think it's called Big Ode, which whoever made that filter, you inspired so much gender envy in me and the hearts of so many others. Tried that filter on and like I loved the way that like a mustache looked on me. And so then I saw a TikTok of these people that bought one for their friend and she put it on and it looked so realistic. So I ordered it off of Etsy and I wore it last summer for a music festival and I thought it would be like a fun music festival look. But I actually am not going to any music festivals so far this year because of conflicting dates and also just like I'm on such a budget. Like I really can't prioritize that fiscally. So I've been looking for opportunities to wear it and Pride weekend was the one. Like I had a party on Friday night and I was like, this is it. And as soon as I put it on, I was confusing everybody. Like it doesn't matter what people thought their sexuality was before they saw me, but like people told me they were thinking thoughts. I was considering wearing it for this podcast because I'll probably put it on later today for today's events, but it makes it kind of hard to speak and actually like articulate, and I'm already poor enough at articulation. Thank you, Bay Area, for raising me in an enunciation-free zone. Although my mother tried to impose her enunciation principles upon me. Was anyone else's parents really big on like enunciation? Like my mom always really hated it when I would speak like this. Like the way they just said, my mom always really hated it. Like I barely enunciated any of those words. But to me, like that's very coherent because it's the way that like all of my friends grew up like speaking. Like when I get together with my Bay Area friends, like, or we're talking on the phone, it's just kind of like a stream of consciousness that's not really like, the words aren't identifiable. And that maybe we like that because it means you get to stim out a little bit more because you have to like put everything together and you have to, there's a little bit more cognition involved. Anyway, I don't enunciate much already. And so with the mustache, I found like I could enunciate, but like it's glued on. And so the glue would kind of get, anyway, I'm not wearing it today, but if you want to see what it looked like on me, you should have been following me on Instagram. So this is your call out. I will be wearing it more because of the like euphoria I felt while wearing it. Yeah, it just inspired like a lot of really insightful and like eye-opening conversations about how I like to present. But as any dutiful revelatory listener will know, I struggle with permanence. That's why I don't have any tattoos. That's why I don't have pets. Like I don't want to commit to anything that I can't have a sense of renewal with, or if there's anything that's irreversible about it. I just kind of struggle with that because I just don't. I've like undergone such profound transformation, and sometimes I deny that I have, but I'll meet new people. Like I went camping. One of the best. June has been full of just like, well, there was one weekend of period emo fraught feelings, but many of the weekends in June have just been so buoyant and like fulfilling and life affirming. I went camping with a couple of new people, and one said that he had like looked up my YouTube channel and was just like, you've got range, because even like I was looking in an old bag and I had my like Women in Sales Awards like magazine, basically, from when I won like best sales newcomer, which like I always forget that I was good at my job. I'm like, oh yeah, I was like good at that. But I was reading it out to my friend, and like just the words I wrote about like what my career meant to me and like what mattered to me were unrecognizable. And that was only 5 years ago. So I'm like, if I can undergo this much change in 5 years, I just don't really want to like have any predictive models or anything that's kind of like, I just want to be really open and fluid. Like that's just kind of my whole thing is I want to be open and fluid, and I'll check in every month and let you know where things slide. Like I am very communicative and like proactive, and like when things change, I let people know. So like, you know, people just kind of have to be ready for the winds turning and the tides changing. But if I could like, my running thing now is like, if I could trade bodies with Heath Ledger for like 10 years, I would do it. But like, I don't want to do it forever. Like I love my body. It's taken me so long to be confident like in my body. I just tweeted out the other month that like I love being like 6 foot tall with shoes on. And I felt so self-conscious about that growing up because I thought it affected sort of like my desirability, and desirability was like so much of my worth. But like, I love my height. I love what it enables me to do in this world. I think so much of who I am. It was so funny at the party, actually, the party I went to on Friday night, like, one of the most, I don't even know how much I should talk about this on here, but like it was one of the most like idyllic. And here's what I struggle with is like sometimes people try to paint like nightlife and like their weekend is like, I did it the best way. Whatever way you did it wasn't as good as mine. I'm not even trying to outdo or outperform or say that like I came out on top. I was just so enamored by the people that put together this gathering. I thought it was so generous. And like when we were walking up to the party, I literally turned to my friends and I went, this is going to be amazing, just so you know. Like I could feel it before we opened the door. I was just like, I hate to say it, but the aura was pulsing from the scene 2 houses away. I could feel it. And it was just the most amazing co-living situation. There was like 4 houses in a row, and 2 of them shared a backyard where there was a deck with a huge like gymnastics trampoline built into it. There was a hot tub. There was like this like patio area. It was just massive, and everybody that lived there like had become so close and so intimate. And then like the companionship, the way they live their lives together. I've been reading so many articles recently because I was just featured in a Vox article about moving closer to your friends. I'll try to remember that to link that in the show notes in the description. But if I don't, please DM me your comment. But I've been reading a lot of like co-living articles, and it's sort of intimidating because I'm like, it just feels like sometimes you're so far away from the version of life that you want to be leading and like the version of companionship I want to be leading. And like, for example, after that party, we got out so late, and like my friend lived in a faraway neighborhood. So I was like, if you want to stay over, like, please do. Because people would always offer me that when I would do what she was doing, and I didn't take them up on it. And then I would wait for the bus or like spend a lot of money on an Uber that I didn't really want to spend. So she took me up on it, and then we were able to have people don't like when I talk about pillow talk platonically. I don't give a damn. I don't give a damn. We're queering pillow talk. And by queering it, we're not making it queer sexually. We're making it actually more platonic. But like, why can't it be that way? People just don't want to hear it. But anyway, pillow talk before we went to sleep. Maybe people are just mad that they don't have pillow talk outside of sexual relations. And I'm like, maybe, like, I'm like so glad that I don't have to have sex to have pillow talk. Those 2 things can be unlinked. Unlink them. So we had pillow talk before we went to bed, woke up in the morning, had pillow talk in the morning. Like, kind of talked about last night. We got ready. We like figured out where we wanted to go to breakfast. We figured out like what our set of friends were doing. Like each of us have, we have like overlapping friends at this point because we've like combined a lot of our lives, and then we have like our own friends. And so we kind of decided like, okay, let's go to breakfast and let's do our own plan. Then we'll meet up with these people and then those people. And we just lived our lives together that day. Like all the decisions were made jointly. We had the same home base. I was like, this is the version of companionship that I've had so much trouble articulating, but I just want to live life together with somebody and not feel like when I go home from the party, I go home alone. And then it's a matter of hours or days before I link back up with people and feel like in community. And so seeing that this party was at this co-living situation and everyone was so communal and like supportive and tight and close, I was like, damn, this is like so special. But when I was at the party, like I feel like, and I put this on the Revelatorium Instagram too, summer is like the time to meet so many frenetic, random new people. Like people are just so much open, I feel like, especially during Pride Month, to talking to new people, being so friendly. Like we're going to this like warehouse sale for like Big Bud Press, and we got there and the line was like wrapped around the block. It looked so long, so we walked to the front. We talked to this like group of really cool lesbians, and we were like, what was the amount of time you waited? And they were like 3 hours. And we were like, oof. And we had this whole, we were like riffing. We were like riffing for a little bit about, because I was like, damn, I can't believe they did this on Pride weekend. Like you guys are just, you're sitting here, sitting ducks. Like you're not able to go out and have fun. They were like, no, this is Pride. And I was like, wait, you're so right. And they were like, we need to get hot dog stands in here. We need to get speakers. We need to get a DJ. And I was like, well, our job is going to be, we're going to go down the line and like socialize and get the vibes going and like bring it up and amp it up. And it was like so fun and amazing. And I was like, even though I didn't get like anybody's contact information from that like little interaction, that less than 5-minute interaction, I was like, it just feels so enlightening to meet new people and see that like there are so many people out there that are worth getting to know. And I've been feeling a little bit like disheartened by how much I've seen of like misanthropy out there. And I've seen a lot of people really, in my comment sections, really kind of double down on being alone and like giving up. And one thing about me is like, I just don't allow myself to give up. Like, I don't want to feel helpless. I don't think helplessness is like, it's not a resourceful way to feel. It's not empowering. I'm like, I don't want to, like, there's already so many things that are seeking to disempower us systemically. Like, why would I disempower myself any more than those things? Like, why would I learn from them to start doing what they're doing and disempower me further? Like, I want to feel like I can move and change and I have agency. And that's how I've been able to transform so much over the last 5 years, politically and just like personally and relationally and career wise, like all of it. Like I've transformed so much, just appearance wise too. So I just really liked that interaction, even though we didn't get to, like, I'm not going to see those people again. Well, they were going to go to this other clothing sale we were going to, but they didn't show up. But anyway, like, even though it's like, I'm not maybe going to see those people again, they're not going to be in my life every day. It's just so encouraging to me that there's people out there that I'm like, they would be good to get to know. Like, there's so many people out there. If you just show up, like, eventually you'll see those people. And I will say too, there were many spaces and gatherings I was at this weekend where I was like, these aren't my people. And like, I don't want to get to know these people. And like, I feel like they're blocked or in some way. Like, I don't feel like I have like an open channel to like get to know them. So I'm not saying it's like everyone, but there's so many chances in the summer. I feel like opportunities to meet new people. And I like it really feeds me. But anyway, at this party, I was like, really like, I want to meet new people. This is exactly the type of place that like has the people I want to meet. And I walked by this group of 3 people and they were so tall. And I was like, oh my God, you guys, it's the tall people's convention. Like, why didn't you invite me? They laughed, and it was like literally like a 6'7" guy, 6'4" woman, and like a 6'3" guy. And so I was like short in that situation, but I talked to them for like a little while longer. And then I left. I like went on the trampoline, like jumped around, talked to some people there. And then I talked to some other people. And one of them was a 6'7" girl and like maybe a 6'3" guy. And I was like, you guys, you're late for the tall people's meeting. And they were like, what? And I was like, you guys didn't see them? They're hard to miss. Like, they don't even need a flag. They don't even need a station. You can just tell they're gathering. They're like, what are you talking about? And I was like, there's just a bunch of tall people over there. Like, you guys should go. And they're like, where is it? And I was like, okay, I'll show you. So then I brought them over and I was like, you guys haven't been to the existing tall people. And I was like, you guys have not been doing your job at recruiting. So I've been taking that on. And then we all talked, and it was actually so wonderful. I was like, I'm not in a lot of environments with a lot of people of height. But there's a few experiences that like are worth talking about. And I guess all of them had a lot of tall friends, but like I feel like I don't. But even just the camaraderie of that was like fun, and just getting new people together and out of maybe their usual like social groups. I think I have sponsored an idea of the West Coast that is very exclusionary and that is sort of icy. And I think, yeah, it is more icy than the South for sure. Like the warmth that I feel as a stranger and a tourist in the South, I don't feel as a local embedded in my community here. Like it's just a different cultural tone. But when I was in LA the first weekend of June, we're getting the June recap asynchronous or chronologically. I don't know. Not chronologically. We're going 500 days of summer and we're flipping back and forth between the numbers. But the first weekend of June, I was in LA for my dear friend Tiffany Ferguson's baby shower. It was so beautiful. My first pregnant friend. Like, what do I do about that? But yeah, it's going to be wonderful. There's so much to learn from children, so much wisdom from youth. And although she's on the East Coast and I don't get to see her that often, I am just charmed to be included in celebrations like that. So I flew down to LA to do that, went to a party in LA and was able to it took a little bit more elbow grease, but I was able to talk to some new people there. And just have been kind of like peeling back my representation of like what social life can be here. And like people do want to talk to new people. Like I feel like if you go to a gathering, like a lot of the people that I came with did stick with each other for most of the night. And when I would kind of veer off and go talk to new people, they were kind of like, where did you go? But I think that I am trying to like develop my like outgoingness more. Like I've always been an extrovert, but sometimes I just stick with the people that I know and trust and love. You know, when I go to Jamba Juice, I always order the chocolate mood. I don't like deviate really, but I'm like, it's time to deviate. Time to be a deviant. That's what Pride Month is all about. So I'm a social deviant and and I enjoy talking to new people. And like I had so many like actually revelatory conversations, and you know, with this one person that lived there, and I got to have like basically a 40-minute conversation with her like in her house that she invited me over so I could use her like private secret bathroom, so it wasn't like the line wasn't like so long. And we just talked in her kitchen for like 40 minutes about like what the experience of living there was like for her and how she just fell into it and how it's like her vision of friendship and housing has changed, and like she's gonna move with two of the people that she met there to New York because they're moving to New York. Like they're a unit. And I'm like so inspired. I was so inspired by that party. Like going, like I'm not really a nightlife person usually. It kind of does take a weekend like this for me to be like, okay, it's time to go. But also I feel like people aren't hosting like as many parties as maybe they did like, I don't know, 20 years ago, like, because it takes a lot of work to host a party. And I've heard about a lot of parties that people like charging like a cover. And I'm like, I just don't know how I feel about that. I think like if you want people to donate to like the cleaning costs and stuff, and obviously like this was a BYOB situation, like, I don't know. I feel like it is so generous to host a party. I was trying to be very effusive about how grateful I was, and like got to meet so many people that lived at those houses, which I didn't think I would when I went to this party. But I'm just like nightlife, when I do get the opportunity to go out and meet new people, there's some times where it's not my scene, but like a house party is my scene. Like a housewarming party, a house party, like anything where I can talk and I can dance and I meet new people that are like friends of friends. That's like perfect for me. And I think it's really worth identifying at some point in your life what social opportunities and what nightlife genres appeal to you and what really don't fill you and maybe even detract from your spirit, because it's not worth going to those. But I tend to be open-minded. But yeah, I was just so inspired. They host like 7 parties a year, and I was just like, this is such a gift. And I was so disheartened that maybe I found this at the tail end of it because they're moving. But yeah, we'll see. Anyway, gathered a bunch of tall people together, and like I love my height, and like that's something it took me a while to get comfortable with. But like I love my body in its current form. But getting back to the Heath Ledger of it all, like if I could trade bodies with him for 10 years, I would. Like I would love to have like a happy trail, a mustache, and then just like kind of a male swagger for like 10 years, and then I would be good. or so you think, you know? Like sometimes people are like, I'm just going to go to New York for 8 months and then I'm going to move. And I'm like, but what if you love it there and you want to live your whole life there? And I think, I don't know. I don't really know what's about people not like New York is one of the few places I feel like that people are just like, nope, I could never live there forever, but I want to live there for 5 years. And I'm like, what? Because I don't want to be bombastic or anything, but I'm like, I feel as though, let me get judgmental for a second. No, I feel as though, because you know how Airbnb ruined like neighbor relations? Like if you have Airbnbs in your building, those are not people that you can reliably get to know and that can support you and be there for you. And so I'm like, for me, as I'm building community in Seattle, I'm not looking for people that are going to be here their whole lives. But like, if someone tells me that they're going to be here for just a couple months and then they're going to move, or like their vision of them being here is very short-sighted, that's not really in alignment with me because I'm trying to build my roots here. And so I can imagine in New York, it would be hard for me if I lived there. No one's asking me to live there. I'm not really examining living there, but I'm like, I wonder what the dynamic of living there would be like if you're a transplant and your friends are transplants and nobody is like envisioning being there in their 40s or 50s. Cause I would just feel like there was such an exploding timeline on that. It's like, I don't want permanence, but I do like security. So let's deal with that. You're like, she is so contradictory and hypocritical. And yeah, I am, baby. I am. Most of us are, but too shy to admit it. So anyway, flirting with gender and seeing what feels right. And I think I just might start like wearing that mustache more and just like see where it gets me. And it's been a very eye-opening experience. So if you've had any Pride Month revelations about, you know, your identity in any facet of it, I'm with you. And summer makes for a very hysterical time to reimagine what your life and what you could be. So that's kind of revelation number one. Revelation number two is that it's very on the theme of meeting new people. It's very frustrating for me when all I want to do is get to know someone and they won't let me. This is what I'm talking about. Many people are blocked. There have been a couple of experiences this month. They are going to go ahead and be with men. So if you're not enjoying a little bit of, it's not even misandry because it's just like literally exactly what happened to me. Like you can't be a misandrist if it's just explaining plainly what happened. But unfortunately, they have both been with men. I think this can happen with anyone, but it does more frequently happen with men. And I don't want, like, same with like being misanthrope. I don't want to be a heteropessimist. I don't want to be a misandrist. I don't want to feel dismissive or pessimistic about like what my relationship to men could be like, but I'm just not getting great evidence to the contrary, except from gay guys. Like I've been receiving so much electric compatibility and chemistry with gay guys, but not with many others. So when I was in LA, I had what I call a friendship Cather out of office hour. I've been wanting to do these office hours for a while, which is where I just post up somewhere and tell people I'm going to be here. If you want to stop by from these hours, we can hang. And it's just like literally office hours, but like the office of friendship. And because I was in LA, I am out of office, but also, you know, in my current state of employment, things are kind of always out of office. Anyway, I invited like all my friends in LA to come, and like it was so successful. Like half a dozen people came, and you know, beautiful, you know, little connections sparked out of there. And it was just so fun. It was great to have so many eclectic different people from different stages of my life come together, yada, yada, yada. You know, I like mixing friends. You know about perhaps the close friends conference, but I need to do a better job of like really disseminating that, because I think more people should adopt that. And I'm a cultural propagator, and that's what I do. So basically, we're at this happy hour. It's kind of winding down. People are leaving because the hours that I set were over. A couple people wanted to stay, and we basically like ended up crashing this like film and TV production networking event because the only table we could stand at was kind of like over by them. We started talking to these two people, because at first they were like, "Oh, are you here for the networking event?" And I was like, my lying ass, I'm like, oh my God, yeah, sorry, we just, you know, don't have our name tags. And they're like, oh, and I was like, yeah, where'd you guys get those? And they were like, oh, over there. And then they were like, are you really here for the, because like we just looked like, there's a certain approach you have. I feel like when you go to a networking event, there's a sense of professionalism. And like, I was letting it all hang out that night. I'm with my best fucking buds. I'm having fun. So I was not exactly putting a blazer button. Nobody there was wearing blazers. Everyone looked really cool and sexy, honestly. So we're talking to these two people anyway. They know that we're not really there for that, but we're just having a conversation. This one guy, like, he is working on his film project. He wrote the screenplay. He's like created the sizzle reel. He like sent me the link for it. He was telling me about how hard it's been fundraising. And like, I'm asking him about the process of like even just writing the screenplay and how long it took. Cause like, I want to do that. And like, we're having this really amazing, like, creative discussion about like our processes and like the philosophy behind it. And like, it's really just wonderful. And I'm really feeling like we're hitting it off. And like, I'm asking him about like moving out to LA and his experience with, he lived with his dad, and like asked him about making friends. And he was just kind of like, yeah, I always have. I had a lot of trouble that first year even talking to anybody, because I feel like it's really hard for me to like when I'm, you know, with somebody, I feel like this wall up, and I'm like, oh, like, what's the wall? Because I don't identify with that. I'm like, what's the wall? And he was like, well, it just feels like I'm not being open. And I'm like, so you're saying like, are you not being open with me right now? And he was like, no, I'm being open with you. And I was like, oh, okay, well, what's the wall? And he just like couldn't say. And I was like, I'm getting just confused, because I'm like, well, what is this? If you've had it your whole life, like, I mean, maybe I'm just more therapized. Maybe I just over intellectualize every aspect of my life. That's why this podcast exists. But I'm just like, oh, like, you know, what is the wall? Like, and he was just kind of like, well, I just feel like there's a certain point where like, we can't get that close. And like, the only time I can really ever feel empathy or sympathy for someone truly is when they're expressing deep suffering to me. And I was like, oh, this is dark. Like, this is dark. But I'm like, he's telling me all about his intimacy issues, which inherently is intimate. So I'm getting very, very confused, because I'm just like, you are opening up a lot to me. I have not felt a wall up with you at all. Like, I feel like I can feel it when someone's blocked and they're not being as expressive or like free in their masking, you know, like I can feel it when people just like let their guard down and they're just really like, you know, I felt that many times this weekend. So I was just like, what is going on? Because I just don't feel this from him. Like, I wasn't coming at it from a perspective of like, you're not doing a good enough job of explaining it. I was just really curious and I wanted to learn more. And like, he was not yielding anything else. And so I was just like really confused. And he went to go get water, and then he started talking to his other friends. So I never got to hear from him again. And then I was talking to my friends about it, and they were like, what is this wall? Like, what is he talking about? And then we kind of came to the conclusion that the wall, it was a meta wall. The wall was, he couldn't tell me what the wall was. Do you catch my drift? Like, I'm like, if he was truly, his wall was down, he could tell me what that wall was. But because the wall was up, he couldn't tell me about the wall. Anyway, he sent me the link to his sizzle reel, and without going into too much detail, I did discover what the wall was, and it's very valid. But I was just like, why could you put that on a web page? And maybe this is where I'm getting hypocritical. But I'm like, why could you put that on a web page for the public and for people that you want to give you money? But you couldn't tell me that when I was telling you so much and divulging so much of my own personal life and my own relationships. And like, I was just like, I don't know. I was just very unsettled by it. And I was also unsettled by like how resistant he was to like healing. That's my thing, is I'm like, I feel like so many people are just so down to double down. Like, they don't want to grow and change and like heal. They just want to like, they're just like accepting that they are just like gonna live this way forever. And I'm like, I just like don't understand people like that, because I'm just like, I don't want to accept when things aren't like really fueling me, you know? So it was a really, really confusing interaction. And then I had another interaction at the party this weekend where it was the same thing. I felt like this person was really interested in me, and like there were so many opportunities for them to like just literally fuck off and like not talk to me anymore, or like talk to somebody else, like give them plenty of opportunities to like leave the conversation. They didn't take them. They wanted to be there and they wanted to talk to me, and like got each other's contact information, and then I just like don't hear from them again. So I'm just recognizing that really upsets me. And I feel like I haven't identified a way to prevent that situation from happening. It's just kind of like, maybe it is just what you buckle up for when you go out and you meet new people, is that there's going to be some people that are very open to you, and there's going to be some that are very closed. Or maybe they feel open, but there's a door that you get to at the end of the hallway that is shut, locked, double bolted. The locksmith can't even open it. It's like done. And it like, I don't know. I just want to feel naked with my friends. We've talked about nudity on here before, physically, but like even just spiritually, I want to feel naked. Like, I don't want to feel like I'm holding anything back, or I feel like there's not a full reciprocity of like openness. And I know you're probably thinking, well, that's not fair. Not everyone can give that to you. And that's fine. I'm just not going to be as close with those people, you know? So that's been causing me a little bit of dismay in an otherwise very uplifting start to summer. I've also, in some of these gatherings on the camping trip and at the party in LA, been touching on picking culture, which is something the person sitting next to me at this fire pit on a balcony on a penthouse rooftop loft in LA. I was like, what? And you guys pay $1,900 each for this? This is bonkers. Anyway, I was talking to the person next to me, and he, very similar to me, like very like kind of an over functioning person, like just kind of doing too much. And he was talking about how like he engages in picking culture, which is where like he in a situation will like identify somebody that he wants to be friends with, and he will pursue that. Like, he is a pursuer, just like I am. Like, he really feels like he has a sense of like deliberation and sort of like, intentionality in his relationships, that he really like wants to curate his social life in a meaningful way. And I'm like, yes, that's totally the way that I go about it. And it's so helpful having like a term around it, because I was like, I'm curious to see what other people's relationship to picking culture is like. So I talked about it around the campfire, fire to fire. Look at that thematic relevance. Fire pit on the rooftop, fire pit at the camping place, at the camping spot. We was talking about the two new people that I was camping with about picking culture, and neither of them really associated with that. They were like, no, I just kind of like, I don't really know what someone's going to mean to me until I'm further along in the relationship. Like, I don't really feel like there's that like sign that like that's my person and I should like go for them. But I'm someone who, I'm very sensitive, and I definitely do feel like a call or like a pull to certain people where I'm like, that's somebody. And like, I do it in the comedy scene. Like, I feel like I do it at a party where I'm like, that's somebody that I want to talk to. Like, I feel like I have a sense of that. But it's refreshing to hear that not everyone goes about their life like that, because variety is valuable. But I will say it's an honor when someone else engages in picking culture and you are picked. And I've been picked by a few different people in different stages of my life, and they have told me that like I've been picked, and I cannot tell you like how special that makes you feel. Like, I love attention. I love to feel special. I'll never be quiet about that. I know that I suffer from benign neglect, and I shouldn't want this much like interaction. But until I find alternate routes, the hardest part about attention, it's like, it's hard to give yourself attention and have that feel like the way that it feels when other people give you attention. Attention is a very like bi-directional situation. Like, I feel like it involves at least a party of two. Like, it's really like, I give myself attention by like, you know, checking in if I'm hungry, and like, what do I want to do today? And like, you know, doing embroidery and playing piano and going out on walks and picking flowers. Like, that's all like giving myself care maybe, and paying attention to myself. But like, as an extrovert, it never feels as like energizing as when other people give me attention. So that is something that I am trying to process. But anyway, I've talked before about being discerning, and like picking culture is an offshoot of that. Final revelation is that I want to be set up romantically. I feel like I'm at a point where I know enough people that someone should just know somebody that would be interested in me. This has happened to me once before, and it didn't come to fruition. It was just like a brief fling kind of thing, but still it was like helpful. It was a helpful way to meet somebody versus I feel like a lot of times dating apps, as we talked about last episode, are very unhelpful. There's a lot of limitations and constraints and sort of like narrowing of the dating experience, and being set up, it just feels in my head like a little bit more responsive to the way that like I approach my social life in general. Like I was watching a video from Anthony Resinello on YouTube, and he did this like hour-long like dating coaching session with a couple of his subscribers in New York, where he just talked to them in like Washington Square Park and just kind of coached them through some of their situations, finding it difficult to find people to romantically connect with. Cause like I don't find it difficult to find people who I platonically connect with whatsoever. And so I'm like, it's not that I'm just struggling, period, to find people who get me. I have so many people. I'm blessed and privileged and so fortunate to have felt like I have so many people that know me, that see me, that get me, and are a good hang, treat me well. There's some people that don't treat me as well as I would hope, but like we move and we change and we process, and we'll deal with those things. So I'm like, I am someone who I put myself out there. I take on so many opportunities. I'm meeting new people all the time. I feel like I'm doing the right things, but like, again, it's been 5 years of being single. So like, I start to question if like my process for going about it isn't yielding results. But I think ultimately it is just sort of like mysterious who comes around the corner. And like, I've had so many times where I felt a little bit more hopeless, and then a friend comes into my life and I'm like suddenly like reinvigorated to be like, oh, like people are abundantly good and present and there if you look for them. But like that just hasn't really like been mirrored to me in the dating environment. Like I just don't meet as many people that I am interested in romantically. Like I meet so many people I'm interested in platonically, but I'm just like, I feel like his advice in that dating episode was just like, literally he was telling people to do what I am doing right now. So I was like, okay, I'm doing what he's saying to do, which is just to like, just not focus on like, I need to have a date, but just like, I need to meet new people and just seeing where it goes and being open-minded. And like, that's exactly how I approach my dating life, or sorry, my social life, but my social life has not yielded a dating life. And so I'm like, I feel like I know enough people that somebody might very well know somebody that they could set me up with. So I've been just actually vocalizing that more to my friends and saying like, I want to be set up. And like, if there's somebody that you meet that you're like, I think maybe they would hit it off with Kath, like give that opportunity my way. And also so much of my ethos and my philosophy in life is to model behavior that I'm asking for. I think it's so easy. Like I am a very strong-willed, outspoken, opinionated person. And I think it's easier for me to like be like irritated by something or someone's behavior. And then what I do reflexively is like, well, have I ever exercised that behavior? Like, have I ever not let somebody in and like had a wall up, you know, like going back to that situation, like when I can identify situations, it's a little bit more of like an empathy building experience. So I try to do that when I can. And like, I am realizing that matchmaking is scary for me in a romantic sense. It's not scary for me in a friendship sense. I have match-made so many friendships, but it doesn't look like the version of matchmaking that has been sold to me. It's not like I select two people and I'm like, you guys are going to be best friends. I just get a bunch of my friends together and what happens will happen. Like I don't preordain who's going to be there. I don't try to sit people next to each other. I just let the connections happen as they will and as they may. And like that has produced amazing results and like amazing friendships. So I'm like, I am modeling and leading in the like friendship matchmaking, but in the romantic sense, like I've had a couple situations where I'm like, oh, I think those two people, like that would be a cute couple. And so we'll get them together in the same room. But like, I don't have any interventions. Like I don't want to manipulate things. I've had like a couple friends like kiss before, but I've never had two friends start dating because they met through me. And I'm not even just like, oh, that'll give me a sense of accomplishment if I do that. I'm just like, if I want people to matchmake for me, I feel like I need to matchmake for other people, but it's intimidating to like select two people and be like, those people are going to get along. Cause I'm like, I don't want to make them feel misrepresented or like that I don't see them for who they are if they meet the person and they're like, that's because I've heard about situations where two people get match made, like two gay guys get match made, and it's actually just because they're like the two gay guys that person knows, and it's like, oh, you guys are gay, like you should be. And I'm like, oh, that's a very 2001 version of like, okay. like I'm like, are we not past the, oh, just because we have the same sexuality doesn't mean that we're going to be attracted to each other? Like what? But sometimes you do genuinely, you're like, oh, I think those two people get along and they're gay, and it's not because they're gay, but like hopefully they don't think of me as just being reductive about it. But it's like, yeah, I feel like you can get self-conscious about, you know, how that might reflect poorly on you if you matchmake two people and it doesn't work out. So I did ask you all about this so I could learn more about the project and the practice of matchmaking, because I do want to get more involved in it, and maybe I will like report back to you. But I think ultimately, like, beyond matchmaking, I just want to tell more of my friends. And this is something Anthony said in the video. I just want to tell more of my friends. Okay, this is actually, we're going to dovetail into taking now. What I'm taking into July from June is from this video. I want to tell more of my friends, like, I want to meet your friends, and being more intentional with my friendships, especially at the early stages of like, I want to be your friend. Like, I like hanging out with you. Like, we click. Like, I want to meet your friends, and like, I want to see you more often. And like, I like just being like, not necessarily having the like, what are we conversation, but being more forthcoming with like what I want out of that situation. Cause that person might never know that you want to meet their friends unless you say that. And I think most people are reticent to mixing their friends, but if you prompt it and you say, I want to meet your friends. Like when I was in New York, I told my friend that I was staying with, I want to meet your friends. And then he specifically carved out like 2 nights during that trip where I got to meet his friends. And that's like what I asked for. And if a friend really cares about you and really wants to support you, they'll do that. And if they don't, they'll let you know, and then you can go from there. But I'm just like, I want to just tell my friends that I want to meet their friends more. And then it's not necessarily a matchmaking situation, but it's like, maybe that's how I'll meet somebody I'll be interested in romantically. But again, like, I'm just always just focused on connections. And if those end up being platonic, I'm never disappointed. I'm also taking being inclusive. There are so many plans and events and opportunities in the summer to socialize. I lose nothing when I just tell somebody, hey, we're going to this. Do you want to come? And I feel like I'm always yearning for other people to do that with me, to just like include me on a plan. And maybe I won't want to go, but like usually it's very flattering and it makes you feel loved and seen and cared for. So yeah, I think again, like, I want my friends to be more inclusive with me. And like, when I had my friends stay over and we kind of lived life together for like 48 hours, it was very easy for us to be mutually inclusive of all of our plans, where it's like, oh, I'm going over here with these 2 friends, let's go to that. And I check in with the people if I want to bring someone to see if it's fine. But I'm like, that's all you have to do if you want to be inclusive, is like, hey, I know we are going to go to this bike ride. I have a couple of other friends with bikes. Like, do you mind if I invite them? Or do you want this to be a one-on-one situation? And if they want it to be a one-on-one situation, cool. You are still going to have that plan. But if they are open to it, you might have, like, we're in a fucking loneliness epidemic. Like, why are people so exclusive? Like, just the easiest way to fix this is just like what you're already doing. Just bring more people into it. And I understand that I'm saying this as an extrovert, and a lot of people don't like to have bigger gatherings, but I mean, 4 people on a bike ride, is that too overwhelming? I don't know. So, yeah, I want to be more inclusive, and just like, unfortunately, you have to be more comfortable with rejection, or just not even framing someone declining an invite or not responding as a rejection. It's just like, okay, I'm already doing this. I already have a plan. If those people can't go, it doesn't take away from the plan. If they come, it just like adds a little bit to it. But I think we could all stand to be more inclusive. And I'll also say I've at times found exclusion to be meaningful and courteous. If there's a situation where you're like, I don't think that person like should be here for XYZ, like it makes sense to exclude them for this reason. Like, I don't think everyone should be included all the time, and I'm not expecting that, but I've had a couple of pangs of feeling left out already this summer, and I'm just like, oh, like, I don't think that I deserve every invite to everything, but like, you can have more pangs of, oh, I feel so good to be included, than, oh, feels so terrible to be excluded. Like, I think I would like to have the weight be distributed more heavily the other way, right? And it is. And also, I think it's so important when you get left out or excluded to not focus on who's not with you and who's not spending time with you, but to focus on who is showing up in your life, who is your friend. Like, I'm always when I wasn't on my period, I was focusing so much on what I didn't have instead of like the birthday parties I was going to and the plans I was being tacked onto just because people were down and hadn't, a loose affinity for me. Like, I should be focusing on those things and not the plans that I was not tagged onto, I'm also taking from June into July the terminology of being damp. I don't really know how we're feeling culturally about that term, but I heard it on TikTok. The cultural purveyor. And it's basically like, you are not dry, you're not sober, but you're not exactly what either. Like, you're not exactly like drinking every weekend, drinking every day. Like, I am someone who I'm not like, it's kind of hard to like explain my relationship to substances and like especially alcohol, but like I am a pretty abstinent person. Like, I'm a pretty like, I never know if it's ascetic or ascetic person, but like I've always kind of been that way. Like, I've always been cautious and very considerate around like things that I know people can get addicted to, because I just know from the years and 15 seasons of intervention that my mom raised me on that it's far easier to never enter that relationship of addiction than to try to recover from it. So I'm like, I have learned from addicts in my life of just like, if you can avoid it, avoid it. Like, if you don't need it, don't go for it. Like, and so with caffeine, with alcohol, with any type of other like drug, synthetic, natural, whatever, like I'm pretty like abstinent with it just because I'm like, I don't really want to deal with the come down from those things. And I'm pretty sensitive. So like, it's just too much for me. Anyway, it's hard for me to communicate to people what I am, because I don't think a lot of people are familiar with like dampness. Like, I'm not sober because I've had like a troubled relationship with alcohol. I'm sober because it's not additive to my life. Like, it's not giving me what I need it to give. And so I'm just like, I've identified a choice few situations around the campfire, at a power hour, where I am like, that is an environment where it's worth it for me to drink. A few very celebratory occasions I'll drink, but it's like less than 1 or 2 times a month. Sometimes I go a couple months without having a sip of alcohol. If we're at dinner, if we're at a bar, usually I'm not drinking. And then I think people, they start to raise their eyebrows or like they get questions about why I'm doing that. And it's like, it's not even that deep. Like, it's really not even that deep. It's just kind of like, well, I'm kind of just allergic to it. Like, it's a toxin and like my body doesn't process it well. And I don't love the feeling of being drunk that much, and it affects your sleep. And I have some chronic illnesses and I just don't need it to like dysregulate my life more than I already dysregulate my life. So I'm good on that. But I'm like, I think, being damp is like, I feel like sometimes people don't take you seriously unless you're fully sober or you're fully drinking. They're like, what are you in this weird halfway weird? I'm not even halfway. I'm like a third. I'm like a third of the way to being like fully someone who drinks. People just don't like that in between. They're like, I want you to be black and white. Like, I want you to be sober or I want you to drink as much as I drink. And I'm like, no, I can't give you that. Like, I'm not going to do that. Like, cause I feel like when I do drink, sometimes people are like, well, you're sober. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I just don't like to drink that much, but I'll do it occasionally. So it's like, it's just people just like to have a static image of you. And it's like, if you want to be in my life and have a static image of me, good luck. Cause I'm wearing a mustache this weekend. Lots of taking in the summer because there's just so many new experiences and things to reflect on. I'm also taking stimming out. I had some delightful experiences with balloons this month, poking fire, bubbles, eating popcorn, watching Ren Fair on HBO. One of my favorite filmmakers, Lance Oppenheim, put out the show. It is so worth watching in any state of mind, especially as sort of like a psychedelic one. Because it's already sort of like a psychedelic show. Anyway, stimming out is so good. I love to stim out. It's so fun, so good. And when I let myself do it, life is better. And finally, I am taking friendship conversion. I've been taking this month over month for a while now, this concept I have in my head of the dichotomy between extrovert and introvert, not stopping there, but then there's more dichotomies branching off of that. For example, extrovert, I believe there are two types of extroverts. You could either be a retention specialist extrovert or a conversion specialist. So for me, I'm a retention specialist. So it's like when I meet somebody, I'm holding on. When I meet someone that really is my person, I hold on. I'm really committal. I really show up. Like I have a lot of long distance, long-term relationships because I am very comfortable with that reliability. And there's other extroverts who are really good at friendship conversion. So it's like they can meet somebody at a farmer's market and the next weekend they're hanging out. Like they can really turn something from one situation into another and like convert people into friends from like seemingly not friendly places. And I have always struggled with that. I've always been very jealous of it or like admired that trait in other people. And it finally happened to me and I was able to convert a friend. I'm not going to get into specifics in case she listens, but like basically was able to convert a friend from one more clinical environment to hanging out at her house and being on a rooftop and just like having fun. And I'm like, you know what? I am able to do that. There are people that I'm going to talk to and they won't let me get to know them. And then there are going to be people that are so open to it. I can, because I'm like, those people, I wanted to kind of convert them into friends and they sort of wouldn't let me. And so I'm like, there are people who do let me and that are reciprocating and are actually like pursuing me and picking me. Oh yeah, I guess it was a situation where someone picked me and we were able to convert our friendship into something more. Wait, I have one more taking and it's hugs because I've been really big on the stat that you need 4 hugs a day for survival, 8 hugs a day for maintenance, and 12 hugs a day for growth. So I've been trying to hug people a lot more, have genuine hugs, like tight hugs, not just like these loose bony hugs, but like really give people that you want to hug a hug. And we need that. We need more touch. And that's also why I want more companionship in my life, because companions you're more comfortable being affectionate with is kind of how I view them. I am leaving in June having the Instagram app on my phone during my period. When I'm on my period, when I'm in that part of the cycle, I'm going to preemptively delete Instagram. It is not conducive to my mindset when I'm menstruating. And also, I need to leave mistaking queening out for having a crush. I love to queen out, love to have a key, love to riff and, have a mess, a key, and a cackle. I do. Sometimes I get confused and I end up with a lot of crushes on gay guys because I just think that the chemistry of queening out is so charming. But then I realize gay guys don't want to touch me because I am a woman. So this is where the gender confusion gets in because I'm like, wait, if I wear a mustache, is that my ticket? So maybe I'm not fully leaving this. I don't know, you guys. Giving you a little window in. Maybe I'll talk about this more on my Patreon. So go over there. Okay. Just took a brief intermission to eat some pancakes because I had low blood sugar. But now my blood sugar is up and in a place where I can read your revelations from the month of June and see how they coincide with mine and what you thought. Starting with Anonymous, who's 27 in Europe, and he said he's leaving, not being afraid of getting hairstyles that my family and relatives might look down on for not being our culture. This has been extra hard as I'm the oldest child in the family by 6 years and by default got to be the responsible one that follows traditions, which hasn't allowed me to fully explore my identity. Yeah, haircuts can be so important. I feel like I'm in a moment where like I know what I want my hair to look like cut wise, but I just can't get it there. Like I haven't been able to find like a reference photo, and it's actually hard to explain what I want, but it is something funkier than what I have right now. So I am very on board with you getting your hair cut. And the thing is, it grows back. Like that's what they all tell you because it's true. Lenny, who's 25 in France, is leaving all my unpublished thirst traps from 2023 to 2024. Phone got stolen. That is devastating. That is devastating. And let that be a call to action that if you have thirst traps that you've been waiting to post them. Post them. It is worth it. I have this experience all the time where I'm like kind of hemming and hawing about what to post. And then by the time I'm ready to post it, it doesn't even make sense anymore. And I'm like, okay, I should have just posted that when my intuition first hit. Alex, who's 25 in Halifax, said she's leaving Vancouver slander. I visited for the first time in 17 years in June, and it was really awesome. It beat the Lululemon/business bro allegations. And I didn't realize Vancouver had that alignment as like sort of like techie bro-y kind of thing. It has like maybe the San Francisco, Austin, Texas treatment to it. When I visit, I've been waiting to get kind of like the local perspective on it. Because the tourist perspective I enjoy. I think it's like one of the most beautiful cities in the world. But I go to Vancouver really for the naturalism elements, not really for like the shopping or anything. So maybe that's that. Robin, who fortuitously lives in Vancouver and is 31, said, they're leaving my job. My last day was 2 weeks ago, and I'm beginning a 6-month break from work to spend time outdoors, figure myself out, and create things, which is so wonderful. Like, I love hearing people that are able to take sabbaticals. Like, it's such a gift and a privilege and a luxury. And like, if you can give yourself that, that is like so aspirational. Podcast supporter number 1, who's 24 and somewhere in Europe, thank you for your support, said she is leaving listening to new to me, LOL, podcast eps while driving. Cannot focus on both driving and listening to what you're saying. Which, like, I don't really know what that sort of like, you know, what that denotes about the quality of this podcast. I'm like, is it that frenetic that it's just like, you will crash? You will crash. And then in terms of what'll be following us into July, there is a little bit of advice that the podcast supporter number 1 requested. And that is that she has a big fat crush on a guy from the choir she's in. She said, please help. Since choir ended, I don't know when I'm going to see him again. I do have his number, but texting somehow doesn't feel quite right either. The options are either leave it be, approach him through text, or approach him the next time I see him. Now the question is, what would Kath do? Would have already sent a text if it was a girl, which is so silly, but him maybe thinking I have romantic feelings is stopping me from approaching him at all. I just like, I've been there. And I too think it's important to, when you're meeting someone new, text them like someone you've already known, like be very open and like be very forthcoming with who you are. And like, if you would text a girl, text him. Like, I just don't feel like I should have to be more distant in order to like be in a man's life. Like, does he need me to be sort of like removed and sort of like untethered? Because I won't even give a signal that I have any romantic interest. I just want to be friends, and guys will just evaporate. And I'm like, what? We were hitting it off so well. Why don't I'm like, I don't know. So personally though, I am someone who it's like, I just got to leave it all on the table. Like, I do just have to text. Like, I can't, I mean, it's very circumstantial. If you're never going to see him again, then you do have to text. If you are going to see him again, then you can let it float and let it be a slow burn. Okay. Stoked on this one again from Robin in Vancouver. She's taking burning CDs. I have an older car that doesn't have any way of playing music from my phone, so I've been using a small Bluetooth speaker, which is what my sister used to do. But the sound quality is fairly crap. I finally got around to buying some blank CDs off Facebook Marketplace and burning some Billie Eilish onto it, and I'm loving it. Also baking cookies. So on the way home from camping, the person's car I was in was a super old Volvo, and it only had a CD player. And so he had like 8 different CDs to choose from. And I love the experience of listening to an album front to back. It's so expansive and cool to follow the storyline. I just love it. And I've resisted getting a record player because I'm like, I know it's a big expense to like buy all of those vinyls. But I recently, through him, I was like, oh, CDs are really good quality. They're better quality than streaming. And I want to get a little like pocket CD player. Not obviously it's too big to fit in a pocket, but like something I can clip onto the belt of like these shorts that I'm wearing right now and like listen to CDs on the go, because I love that analog media. Like, it responds to me well. And I think it's also fun I asked him if I could burn him a CD. Like, if I burned you a CD, would you play it in your car? Like, that wouldn't be an album. It would be like a little playlist. And like, I remember that from high school, and it's just so like, making someone a playlist is awesome. Burning it onto a CD, like, that's forever, baby. Okay, this one is so intriguing, from Quirked Up Shoddy, frequent respondent for Quirked Up Shoddy, who's in her late 20s, in the sunroom after morning coffee to some groovy tunes. And she has been taking into July, gleefully starting building relationships with a few neighborhood crows. That's right, crows. I can't remember how I came upon the fact that you can befriend crows by feeding them things such as peanuts, and they will reciprocate with gifts at times. However, I sprung into action this month with some abandoned shelled peanuts in the back of the pantry. It started with one crow, grown to 2 or 3, and by the end of June, I've successfully shown friends that I can summon them with my chosen call. A high-pitched Sesame Street Martians-esque yip yip, and they will flock to my tree chirping. They leave any shiny objects behind as gifts, and although they will leave their shells on the porch at times, likely a message for me to feed them if it's been a couple of days, I've collected a mysterious 2016 penny heads up that mysterious apparated on my front step recently. In the office, sometimes I will see one of them walking on the side yard fence looking for me. And I've even gotten my friend's mom asking whether or not they would prefer roasted or salted peanuts. My black cat loves to watch me feed them on top of it all. I'm never beating the witch allegations. This is fucking awesome. It's lovely to like localize yourself to a place so well that you get to know the crows. Like I remember when I did a social media hiatus and a digital detox, and I started recognizing all the like hummingbirds that were like feeding off of the flowers on the bush outside my house. Like it's so, I love getting to know the neighborhood bunnies here. I can't like identify them. I don't have that relationship to them, but like intimacy with crows, underrated. Anonymous, who's 24 in Chicago, said that she's taking spiraling outdoors because she's leaving spiraling indoors. And I'm like, sometimes you have to accept that you are going to spiral at times. It's hard to be emotionally just like on top of it all always. It is so much harder for me to spiral as deeply outdoors. Like that is why I let myself get a little high around a campfire, because I never get paranoid or anxious when I'm outside. I feel so safe and connected, and like being an earthly being makes it like, and actually being with the earth, things get a little more connected in a good way. Anonymous, who's 25, in a state of uncertainty and unrest, says she's taking one thing every week to get out of my comfort zone in an attempt to do a one-on-one face-off with my growing anxiety, because she's 26 weeks away from turning 26. Such a fun project. Like 30 before 30, 26 before 26. That is delightful. Okay, also, this one's a little bit longer, but I wanted to feature it. Humane Connection, who's 23, about to be 24, and is writing in from California before moving out, is saying that she doesn't have much time in this state, but she still wants to squeeze in as much living as I possibly can do into these last months. Taking myself on a solo trip to the woods. I'm moving states. I'm getting my 3rd tattoo. I'm hosting my first and last dinner party for the first time in 6 years. Right before I'm about to leave, I'm actually waking up, and I have no choice. If I don't, then the past 10 years of my life might as well have been in a coma. Sometimes it's not until like you're about to like make a big life transition that you finally just release and live the way you want to, because you're like when you're on vacation, you can be a freak because you're just like, nobody here knows me. I can do whatever I want. And that sense of just like impermanence and the fact that it's not going to follow you allows you to detach and unlatch from like these previously held beliefs that were holding you back. Like it's so wonderful. And that's what I try. I tried to go into the summer with like hedonistic abandon and like really do that too. Okay, now let's talk about matchmaking. I asked you guys, have you ever been set up romantically, and have you ever set people up romantically? So Emma, who's 26 in Seattle, said, I was sort of set up with my partner of 5 years by a friend. We met through this mutual friend, but I had to explicitly ask the friend if my now partner was single and if he would set me up with him. I don't think that friend would have ever had the thought to set up the two of us up on his own, but when I brought it up, he was like, oh yeah, I can totally do that, and I think you two would be a good match. See, this is wonderful and proactive, and I've never thought of like, the problem is I can't even identify somebody that I'd like to be set up with, because maybe I haven't met enough of my friends' friends here. I've met some of them, but nobody that I'm like, oh, that person. Sam, who's 30 in California, said she, not personally, but I've seen others play matchmakers. And the biggest thing I see play out over and over is they match a friend to someone else based on their own perception, not really looking deeply at the friend they're trying to set up. Yeah, that's the hard part, is like, do I really know these people well enough to set them up? And I feel like it can just be casual, but you don't want to make people feel like misjudged. Some good news from Pyrex, who's 27 in Cambridge. She is still with the person I was set up with. I was super bummed about my failed love life and my attempts to be a female Casanova not having worked out. A friend of mine suggested that someone interesting had moved in next door to him. He just said, oh, he has floppy hair, just your type. I was offended but reluctantly admitted he was right. Anyway, about a month later, when I announced I was going to ask him out, my friend was fairly upset and suggested that a point-blank love confession was insane and that he quite liked floppy hair as a friend. I consulted several other friends who also agreed it was a bad idea, but then I conveniently remembered that I'm insane and floppy hair and I have been together for 5 years, so can recommend. I want things to work out like that for me. I feel like my confessions of interest and even my hints of interest have not been reciprocated in the way that I need. So I am very, very encouraged by this. Pyrex also said, in terms of her matchmaking people, I have, and it's varied from introducing casual acquaintances based on mutual interest to having almost a three-way in a pub before suggesting the other two parties should date. On a serious note, I know people are probably going to want me to plug challengers there, but I refuse. No, I'm kidding. On a serious note, I just like all my friends to get to know each other. I love hosting large parties, and over the years, many disparate groups of friends have merged and people have met each other. I care a lot about people, and I would consider myself a diehard romantic. If I think people might like each other, I will just arrange a casual event with other people so they can get to know each other, and worst comes to worst, we're just going to party. Yeah, that's an example of exactly what I'm trying to do. Okay, the thing about being set up is it does bring up feelings of, does this person really get me? Does this person really know me? And it actually really transitions well into this question I asked, which is, have you ever been in a situation where someone purported to know you, but you didn't feel like they knew you at all? What was the gap, and did you want them to know you better? Claudette, who's 25 in Miami, Florida, said, yes, with some family. People think they know you well when they really have just known you for a long time. I don't mind the gap. Let's not confuse those two, longevity and depth. This is a really good encapsulation of this from Letitia, who's 26 in Paris. They said, I sometimes get this odd feeling with friends from middle school or high school, or even with family members. When sentences like, oh, that's the Letitia we know, get dropped, it makes me super uncomfortable because most of my family members I see once or twice a year or less. And same for long distance high school friends. I feel like they know the person I used to be, but I have no idea what my day-to-day life looks like, what my politics are, the way I view life, friendships, love, etc. For some of them, it comes with sadness. For example, my grandma, because I would want them to know me, but we don't spend enough time together for that. For others, I truly don't give a fuck because I don't think they would like who I'm becoming. Yeah, it's like, it is interesting. It's like, they might not, they don't care to be interested in like your day-to-day and the minutia. Like, it doesn't feel like they know the broad strokes of who you are, but they don't really know like how you spend your time, which is like a lot of times why I like companionship, because I want to have those little mundane little minutes and things and see how people like pass time. This is also a really good illustration of it. Mia, who's 22, writing from the window seat of a plane, said, in high school, when the blank starter pack meme was going around, a friend made one for most of us, and mine was just very wrong. I specifically remember the musical artist that I apparently had on repeat was a band I only knew like one song of. We weren't the closest friends, but it was a very small school and year group, so we were all quite close in that way, and it felt quite weird to realize that we clearly weren't as close as I previously had thought. Yeah, when people get you, it's one of the best signs of intimacy is when someone knows my personal style really well, like, and can shop for me. Like, that's really like, you're really paying attention. And then I had a friend recently really describe the kind of haircut I was looking for, and I was like, you get it. Like, you get it. And like, that is such a cool feeling, but it's like, it's not the traditional displays of intimacy that we're used to seeing. This is a really good framing of it. Hannah, who's 26 in Alabama, said, I've been in that situation, and honestly, I think it comes from the lack of vulnerability I've shared with a person. How could you truly know me when you don't know my home life, my relationships, what I like, what I dislike? I feel like work relationships are almost like a weird version of parasocial relationships where you think you know someone but remove the work setting and you really don't. Yeah, professionalism like really blocks a lot of intimacy, and I want to get around that when I do have a job. And also, like, this is why it's really frustrating for me in a romantic situation when people have told me, like, you don't know me at all, or like, we don't have a lot of intimacy, because sometimes when people are really vulnerable or sharing a lot, I feel like we're close, and then they deny that, and makes me feel really crazy. Like, I'm just like, what? Like, I thought you were giving a lot of yourself to me, but if they're holding back and they're not being as vulnerable, then I don't have a lot to go off of. And so I don't know. I've had some confusing situations like this. Oh, this is a good one too. Robin again in Vancouver said, one time a guy said he considered me a close friend and I was shocked because I considered him like one tier above acquaintance. We'd hung out many times, but always in groups, so I felt that we barely knew anything about each other. This is when I realized that for many people, more time with someone equals more closeness. But for me, more personal info shared, which comes with quality time, equals more closeness. Huge. I've had people like, I think it depends on that person's own relationships. Like if they don't have a lot of really intimate, in-depth friendships, then maybe your more surface level acquaintanceship is going to feel like very close to them. I don't know. Okay, this fucking person gets it. Hannah, who's 21, in my childhood home that is soon to be put on the market. She said, oh my God, I hate this feeling. I feel like it happens with guys a fair amount. That's what I said. Actually, upon further reflection, I can only think of this happening with guys. That's what I'm talking about. They get this idea of who I am and then they tell me about it. I think it's totally normal to make assumptions about people that you know on an acquaintance level, but then don't pigeonhole them into that and actually allow that person to grow as you meet them. The gap is often about the things that I like or my interests or aspirations. I think that this really turned me off to wanting to know them better. There's something about people thinking they know who I am or know me better, or often thinking they really like me without knowing me, that freaks me out. Sometimes it's kind of positive, like this person, Gwen, who's 23 in Edmonton, said, I remember in my art class, we were asked what aspects of your astrological sign you thought you aligned most with. And I'm a Taurus, the bull, so I said I could be stubborn. My friends from that class immediately turned to me in shock. They said they didn't think I was stubborn at all. I like associating stubborn with determined. Okay, yeah, so it depends what your connotation is. But maybe other people perceive the idea of being stubborn differently. It was an interesting moment that made me question how I present myself versus how I think internally. Is that divide larger than what I can comprehend? I'm always recognizing how much my perception of myself is warped. But yeah, I think stubborn to me has a negative connotation, but I appreciate the reframe of like stubborn as determined, as like relentless, as like committed. Like I feel like I'm stubborn in that way, but in other ways I'm not. Okay, and then on the plane of feeling excluded from plans, Anonymous, who's 27, on her BFF's couch. She's not even home. She left for an appointment and I just get to let myself out whenever. That's so special. She said, yes, I opened Google Maps and found the two friends I share locations with together. I know that one was just seeking advice from the other on a disagreement she and I were having. It makes sense why they needed to hang out without me, but it still stung. Yeah. During my period, no looking at Find My Friends either. Not even because people are hanging out without me, because I don't do sharing location for people. Like I don't share my location with people that live in Seattle because I just don't like feeling surveilled in terms of like where I'm at, but I share it with long distance friends. So like, I mean, if they wanted to FaceTime me, they could check if I was home. I could be with people and hosting people, but like, but I don't like seeing that people are like out and having fun. Might perceive them as out and having fun, and I'm like not. It's a really complicated feeling excluded. Like this person, Anonymous, in Ranch and Cucumbers, California. I'm like, is that Rancho Cucamonga? Said, I have felt excluded. I've had such intense rejection sensitivity around friendship, so I feel like this is a common feeling that comes up with me. More recently, a group of friends from work have a group chat that they spill tea / complain about work in. I'm friends with all of them, but I'm not in the chat, and my boyfriend also works with us, is in it. I feel insecure whenever the chat is brought up because in my body it feels like they will get closer and leave me behind. The feeling becomes stronger / more painful when I'm feeling distant with my friends. However, this feeling is just a feeling, I think, and when I look at it logically, I'm okay with not being included. I'm in group chats not including other people, and it's not because I hate them or don't want them around. So I believe my friends have the same intentions. That is what I was talking about at the beginning of the episode with like reflecting it back on me. And it's like, how am I the perpetrator in situations like that? And what is it like for me? And it's usually not malicious. Pyrex, again, from Cambridge, said, no, two of my friends went on holiday together recently, which I was a little envious of, but I was too busy being smug about how they entirely met through me. I'm so proud. I love that. Friendship compersion. How special. Okay, we made it through. My blood sugar has recovered. I'm going to seize the remaining hours of my day for merriment and pleasure, and I hope you will choose to do the same as any way you can, small or large. If you've never given my podcast a rating, please consider doing that wherever you're listening. If that means liking and subscribing on YouTube, that would be so cool. I'd love to see the channel get to 2,000. I don't really care about numbers, but Actually, I do care about numbers in the aesthetic way of like, oh, having 2,000 subscribers for my like second year of the podcast would be sweet. So thank you so much for listening. I will see you all next time, and Cather out.